Hey guys, Mark Torcus here. So, today we've got another Ashes of Outland card review to go through, and oh my goodness, over the last day there have been so many cards revealed, so we're gonna be going through as fast as we can, but you know me, I'm definitely not going to skimp on the analysis, so this might be a pretty long one. So let's get into it. Alright, the first card is a priest card. 2 mana, 2/3 epic Sethic Veil Weaver. After you cast a spell on a minion, add a priest spell to your hand. So this is interesting. It seems like we're definitely trying to have a lot of, buffs and tempo from these priests and stuff. This is still the second priest card we've seen. We're probably going to see a lot more tomorrow at the reveal stream, that's going to be the end of all the reveals. It's been less than a week. It's pretty crazy that we're already at that point. But yeah, looking at the priest spells that we have right now, there's not very many buffs. And this is clearly mostly going to be for buffs. You could use it with removal as well, obviously, right? Like, you could use this with a Shadow Word Pain or Death or something like that, and then maybe you get a removal back, but I'm thinking that it's mostly going to be for buffs. Or maybe you're doing a little bit of both, and you'll be able to weave this into your turns in a way that you're getting the ability to be flexible if you have minions on both sides of the board, so that you're either removing something or buffing something. I think most priest spells, though, do target a minion at the very least, so maybe it won't be that hard to pull off. Given that you want to combine this with a bunch of spells, you probably want to play this in a slower deck so that you can get a bunch of value back from it. I don't really know how much you can really do with a randomized effect like this when you don't really know what you're going to be getting. It's hard to make it like go infinite or anything, and I don't know how much value you really need off of this kind of thing. I think it might just be a nice inclusion in a Highlander priest or something if we have a Highlander priest happen. Other than that, I don't know what other spells we're getting for priests yet this expansion, and that's definitely going to be important for evaluating this card. I don't know, I think it might be a little bit too awkward right now without seeing a bunch of, like, you're going to want cheap spells. We want to make sure that there's more cheap spells in the priest spell pool, and good cheap priest spells, that this will actually be going off really well. So I think I'm going to give it 2 stars for right now, and then hopefully when we see more priest spells this expansion, it'll be able to move up in the star rankings because there will be more synergy there. Then we have Shattered Rumbler, epic card for Shaman, 5 mana 4/6 elemental, battle cry. If you cast a spell last turn, deal 2 damage to all other minions. So it's got this board clear effect attached to the body if you have the spell first. So the torrent spell that we saw earlier had this same effect where you had to cast a spell last turn. So you're going to be in this deck that's trying to cast spells on a regular basis, probably almost every turn, so that you can keep these things active. So again, this seems like some control shaman, and the legendary that we got was also a board clearing type of effect. That's great and all, being able to clear the board over and over and over, but what exactly are we going to be following up all that with? I'm not sure. At the very least, this has a good body on it, so it definitely wouldn't feel too awkward to throw into a deck if you were planning on casting a lot of spells. I'm just still not sure what this deck is, or what the plan is in this deck that you're going to be building. Maybe if we just have some mid-range shaman that has a decent number of spells in it of some kind, then this will fit into it somehow. Or if we, for some reason, get elemental synergy again, but I haven't seen anything like that happening yet. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars because it's still a decently statted body at a 4/6, and it's got that board clear effect. So it definitely seems like a decent card for sure. I just still don't know where it's going to go, but I think it would fit into something as long as Shaman has a deck that can balance a decent amount of spells with stuff like this. Then for Hunter, we have Mok'Nathal Lion. It's a rare card, 4 mana, 5/2 beast with Rush and Battlecry. Choose a friendly minion, gain a copy of its Death Rattle. So looking at the Death Rattles that we have right now, in neutral, I don't really see anything interesting. So then I looked at Hunter, and there's basically just the 2 we just got recently in this expansion. Is Zizor. So getting another copy of Zizor Prime in your deck definitely doesn't seem bad. But the other one is quite cool, is that you can use this with the Porcupine, the Augmented Porcupine. And then the Death Rattle is that you're going to be getting 5 effectively Arcane Missiles off of this. And that does seem kind of cool, getting a 5 attack rush and following it up with 5 damage to the opponent's, all the enemies. And then if you still have your Porcupine there afterwards, you can do another thing with that. So maybe this works in that Porcupine buff your beast type deck. It does seem like those 2 cards would work quite well in conjunction with each other. And the fact that Zizor also works in that kind of a deck, I think. So having all those 3 cards and this, and the Scavenger's Ingenuity, you've already got this 8-card package that kind of works pretty synergistically, I think. I'd hope that we might be able to find some other Death Rattles that this might work with, so that you're not so confined to having to wait for those to show up before you're able to play this card down, given that that's only 3 targets in the whole deck. But I definitely like the idea. I think if we don't find more targets, that it might be awkward holding on to this, because you're definitely it's a 5 attack rush, so if you don't get the Death Rattle, it's not incredibly terrible. You can still remove something somewhat efficiently that way. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars, and if we get more Death Rattles for Hunter, or in neutral Death Rattles that'd be worth running in this Hunter deck, then I think it'll be better. But for now, yeah, 3 stars is fine. Then for Druid, we have their legendary Yisiel Windsinger. 9 mana, 5/5. Your spells cost 1. So this is the reverse of Aviana, the original Aviana, not the terrible follow-up Aviana. So Aviana gave you 1 mana minions. This one gives you 1 mana spells. I'd say 1 mana spells is much more limiting for sure. I'm not initially certain what spells you really want to use this on. I haven't seen any spells that blow my mind for this. Obviously, Nourish is a pretty decent one that you can use here, but like, if you want to be doing stuff like this, you probably want some big board swingy or combo related spells and stuff, right? It's going to be hard to do anything else the turn that you play this, so you're probably just going to do the 1 spell. So I'm really not sure where this is going to go. It might find some special place in some fancy combo deck. You can obviously discount it first with the new card that we got, the Imprisoned Satyr, and then you'll be able to play more spells all at once. But I'm still not seeing any combination of spells that like does anything of note. If you were to do like a Malagos combo, you still have to pay for Malagos, so then that makes it difficult for you to do both of these things. So for now, I think we're waiting on the cards that we need to make this do something crazy. I definitely think when they print this, that they're thinking about the future and what cards they'll print that might eventually combine with this. But I think initially this isn't going to be something that we're going to be using, just with what we have in the Druid spell pool right now. I might be wrong though. We might find something that works. Maybe I'm just missing something here, and some fancy deck builder's going to be able to figure it out. But I think for now, I'm going to give it 2 stars, and I think eventually this will probably be able to carry a deck in the future once we see more Druid spells printed. Then we have another Druid card, 4 mana spell, Germination. Summon a copy of a friendly minion, give the copy taunt. So we're getting a lot of these 4 mana copy a minion cards. Priest had the silence one, Mage had the regular one, Demon Hunter has only on demons now, and this one gives you taunt. So this is probably the best one that we've seen. I suppose Molten Reflection might be better if you don't want the copy to have taunt, but this one gives you an upside if you do want the taunt, so this is probably the strongest copy of friendly minion card we've gotten. Also, if you wanted to silence your minion, the priest one's good too, but the silence priest thing didn't really work out very well. So you're probably going to want to put this in some sort of ramp large minion type of druid or something like that. Maybe even you'd put it in like an embiggen druid or something so that you get an extra copy. I think there's a few good targets for something like that. It's just that ramping up might be a little difficult. You'll probably want to have that Breath of Dreams and some dragons in there. I do see a few good targets for duplicating, like maybe it's a deck where you're putting these Marsh Hydras in and you're getting a lot of big threats rather early on. I think Druid might be one of those classes that having something like this could really work for them because of how many large threats they could bring out potentially a little bit earlier than usual. So I think it could be an option in Big and Druid to get a cheap extra copy of some of these large minions that you've either been running already or created, or in some large minion ramp druid that's using the Breath of Dreams in the same way. Either way, I think it'll be an option. I don't think it's necessarily going to fit into these decks, but the fact that you get the taunt does keep you protected while you're also pushing your advantage. These aggressive decks that might just normally ignore your minions and try to finish you off quick will have to engage with the copy that you created. I kind of like it. I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. Then for Hunter, we have Nagrand Slam. 10 mana, epic spell, summon 4 3/5 Cleft Hoofs that attack random enemies. So it's somewhat of a board clear-ish effect. It's extremely expensive for a Hunter spell. 10 mana. We haven't in the past seen expensive Hunter spells generally work very well outside of Call of the Wilds, which was all of the animal companions, and the animal companions obviously are very strong, and you know what they are, and they're all going to work well together. But for this, I think at 10 mana, the 5 health I don't think is necessarily enough against the kind of things you're going to see. So I don't think these are going to survive a lot of trades. I think if you're making it to turn 10, the type of enemies that you're going to be facing aren't going to be enemies that are running a lot of small things. And the 3 attack is also probably not going to do a whole lot. I think you're going to play something like this, and it's going to only mildly affect the board. Maybe you clear the whole board, and you probably end up with maybe one of them left over, if that, with like 1 HP left or something. And then you're going to feel really bad that you spent an entire 10 mana Like, this is really underwhelming, I think, for 10 mana. I don't know if you could really make it for anything cheaper, but like, I think the main problem with it is just that the stats are just not that impactful this late in the game. I think you'd rather have two 6/10s, although that seems a little bit much, but like, if you had two 6/10s that attacked random enemies for 10 mana, that might be decent. And then you end up with two surviving 6 attack minions that have cleared out a couple of things. Like, this seems like a good board clear for aggressive boards, but it's too late in the game for something like that. So, unless we somehow get a discount on this spell, which is not a hunter mechanic generally, I'm going to give this 1 star. I don't think it's going to fit into any decks ever. And then we are looking at some new Paladin mechanics in these cards called Librams. So I guess they're books that have powerful Paladin spells in them. So that definitely seems like a cool idea. So we're going to look at all the Librams and the Libram support cards as well, and see how those work out. So the first one we have is Libram of Justice. It's a common card for Paladin. 6 mana, equip a 1/4 weapon, change the health of all enemy minions to 1. So you're getting equality plus a light justice. So light justice costs 1, equality costs 4 now. I don't really know if equality is worth 4, to be honest, but it's how much it costs now. So the weapon lets you deal with some of these minions that have just been set to 1 HP. I think at 6 mana it doesn't feel very good, but these Libram support cards are going to make their Libram cards cheaper. I think once you do get down to like 4 mana, I think this starts feeling pretty good, because then you're just having an equality with an upside. You are going to have to spend some health trading into these things. That's going to add up pretty fast if you keep trading with your weapon like this against all these minions that have lost health. So you're definitely going to need some healing afterwards, but luckily there are some healing options that we're going to see too. I feel like this Libram strategy is going to be what Paladin's going to end up doing. I think that this one is definitely going to be very good at dealing with board states that end up becoming problematic. So I think I'm going to give this 4 stars. You're definitely going to be wanting this in your Libram decks. You're probably going to want all the Libram in your Libram decks. But yeah, I like it. Next one is Libram of Wisdom. 2 mana rare spell for Paladin. Give a minion +1/+1 and Death Rattle, add a Libram of Wisdom spell to your hand. So this is just like Explorer's Hat for Hunter back in the League of Explorers, except for the fact that you can make this cost 0 by discounting it, and that is insane. If you can go 0 mana +1/+1 and you trade it in and put in another one, 0 mana +1/+1, you get a lot of extra free stats that aren't going anywhere. Because of the fact that I think that Lady Liadrin is actually going to be pretty good now in this Libram deck, and you're going to put that in there and get back some of these other ones, because there is another one we're going to look at in a second that is really good and you want to get another copy of. This might flood the Liadrin pool a bit, which might be a little problematic. It might actually make your hand full if you get too many copies of this. So that's a little bit of awkwardness there, but this alone still looks really great. It's not like a crazy effect. You're only able to get that 1/1 on the minion. You can't like recast it on the same minion twice because it has to die first. But I think having extra 1/1 on like all your minions from a certain point in the game onwards definitely is going to help you push towards your victory. So because this fits in the Libram deck, and I think the Libram deck is going to happen, I think that give this one as well 4 stars. And then we have the most important Libram. This is definitely the reason why you're running the deck. This is Libram of Hope, 9 mana epic spell for Paladin. restore 8 health, and summon an 8/8 Guardian with Taunt and Divine Shield. An 8/8 Taunt with Divine Shields that heals you for 8. You could potentially heal a minion as well for 8 instead. That is worth 9 mana, I'd say. I would pay 9 mana for that, for sure. I might even pay 10 mana for that. But the thing is, though, this is probably going to be cheaper than 9 mana. You can potentially get this down to, with all the Libram cards that reduce the costs, it can go 2 down and then 4 more down, so that's 6, so 3 mana at best. Now, 3 mana for an 8/8 Divine Shield Taunt that restores 8 health. My god, yes, I want that in my deck. And if you can make extra copies of this with Lady Liadrin, my goodness, this is going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. Your opponent's going to have to deal with that many 8/8s, and potentially for very cheap, and you're going to be able to deal with all the damage you've taken from all these aggressive decks and so forth. Like, this card will shut down aggressive decks pretty fast. So, yeah, I think this card is going to be the most important card in the Libram Paladin. So I'm going to give this 5 stars. So then we go on to the support cards. We have Aldor Attendant, which is a 2 mana 2/3 common card. Battlecry, reduce the cost of your Librams by 1 this game. So it does say this game. All of them will stay this way. Even if you generate new copies, they're still going to be reduced because it's this game effect that goes across all the ones that you have, all the ones that you find. So you are just playing a 2 mana 2/3, but 2 mana 2/3 isn't bad at all. It's just a pretty normal stat line for a 2-drop, and you're definitely going to get a lot of upside from, as the game goes on, having so much increased speed of all of your spells that you're going to be casting. So I think this is going to be a great card. I'm going to give this 4 stars. Then we have Eldor Truthseeker, rare card for Paladin, 5 mana 4/6 taunt. Battlecry, reduce the cost of your Librams by 2 this game. So this one reduces the cost of your Librams even more. It's got the taunt and it's a 4/6. So this is much better than the Attendant. In fact, it might be possible that you even forego the Attendant because this one has more effect on the cost of your Librams, and it protects you with this taunt body. So this card definitely looks better on its own, but it is more expensive, so that's definitely relevant because the Attendant can get the reduction happening faster, and it can help you survive in the early game. Because this is a more expensive card, it definitely makes sense that it should have a bigger impact. But I can definitely see a world where in a Libram deck you decide to just run this one because it's having the bigger impact if you don't have enough deck slots to make the Attendant work, and if you don't think that reducing it quite that much is that important. However, having both of them is going to increase your consistency if you don't manage to draw the reduction cards that you need to have. But this one definitely seems like the more important one, and I'm going to give this one 5 stars because this one is going to definitely accelerate that game plan and make those Librams come out nice and quick. I think Libram Paladin will be the way Paladin goes, and I'm excited to see that because the Paladins that we've seen lately I have not thought were very exciting at all, honestly. And then we have another Paladin card, 2 mana, Hand of Adal, give a minion +2/+2, draw a card. This is a very good card draw for Paladin. A 2/2 buff and a card draw seems really good to me. You're probably going to want to put this into most Paladin decks, honestly, just to get that draw going. You're normally going to have a target. You have the hero power, after all, so you can summon 1/1s if you need something to play this on. But yeah, this definitely works really well in aggressive decks, so you get those stats, and you're drawing through your deck. But even in slower decks, I think you'd still be interested in this kind of a thing. It gives you better trades while also getting you through your deck faster. It definitely reminds me a little bit of Power Word Shields before they are changing it. You're paying an extra 1 mana to get the 2 attack, which definitely isn't quite as good, but it's still a great effect. Being able to compare anything to Power Word Shield at that level is definitely a good thing. I'm going to give this card 5 stars. I think this card is going to be very good for Paladin. Paladin's whole lineup is looking really good. Then we have a neutral epic card, Replicatotron, 4 mana, 3/3 mech. At the end of your turn, transform a neighbor into a copy of this. So clearly this had to wait for all the mechs to go to wild because of the fact that this combined with magnetic synergies would be pretty nuts, I think, because you could put something like Replicating Menace onto it and then duplicate that onto a 1/1 or something, and then you have 2 minions with death rattles that create more 1/1s. It would just be totally nuts, and it might be totally nuts in wild. It just, that still seems a little slow, but in standard, if you just had a 1/1 that next to it, or some kind of 1-drop, so let's say you're paying 1 mana for the 1-drop, and then you've got this, so you get 2 3/3s for 5 mana. That seems okay, and the fact that it can keep doing that afterwards, because this new copy will also be able to copy, and all the copies will be able to copy, they will definitely be demanding an answer. And also, if you manage to put a buff on this first and duplicate the buff onwards, and all of these things will continue to move along the buff and potentially keep creating more copies and stuff. It does take a little bit to get onto the board because it costs 4 mana and you need to have something to copy it onto. So by the time this gets on board, it might be a little bit late. It might be a little too easy to answer. But I think in a token-based deck, and potentially in a buff-based deck, and hopefully a deck that's got both of those things going on, that this could work. It could demand removal very quickly and snowball out of control if they don't have the removal they need. And some classes won't have the removal they need. Some classes just don't have that kind of access to answers and things like that that others do. Whether this will be too slow to keep up with the meta, I can't immediately decide, but I think it might be able to do a big enough swing when you get it down in some deck that does really care about tokens and stuff like that. I think just because of that snowball potential in a token-based deck, I think I will just give it 3 stars. I think it will manage to find at least a chance of being a good option in the decks like those. And if it doesn't, maybe we'll find more cards to make something like this better in the future. But I think definitely in Wild, this is probably going to be a powerful card, especially combined with things like Galvanizer that can make it cheaper, and all the magnetic synergies that you can do. Then for Demon Hunter, we have Priestess of Fury. It's a rare card, 7 mana, 6/7 demon. At the end of your turn, deal 6 damage randomly split among all enemies. Hell yes, dude. This is probably going to be the best reason to be running the large demon deck for Demon Hunter. So you're getting a 6/7 for 7, so it's like, it's the size of a 6-drop basically, but you're getting the 6 damage randomly split among enemies. So similar to how we talked about with the Antean, it's comparable to Avenging Wrath. This one's a little bit smaller instead of a little bit bigger in its effect. But this is a continuous effect. As long as it keeps staying on board, every end of turn it'll be able to do it. And initially when you play it, you'll be able to get it immediately once you've played it and the end of turn happens, you're already getting some damage on the enemies, on their face potentially. I already had confidence that we'd have more good demons for this large demon deck. I think this definitely shows me that I was right about that. And yeah, I think this might be the best demon in that deck. Obviously, the pit commander that pulls the other demon is going to be important, but this one is going to be the one that's going to push towards winning the game the most. I'm going to give this card 5 stars. Then we have another Demon Hunter card that is pushing the same large demon archetype. Fell Summoner, common card, 6 mana, 8/3, Death Rattle, summon a random demon from your hand. So this reminds me of that one druid minion that was that summoned 5 attack minions from your hand, I believe, 5 or more attack minions. It was a 7 mana 5/3 Death Rattle that would summon those. So 7 mana for that card, and it had less stats. This is 6 mana, which is cheaper, and it has more attack. It's still got that 3 health, so it's still easy to get killed. But this one's very threatening. So you can drop this on 6. You have that 8 attack, so it's really hard to ignore this card because it's threatening so much damage. So they're likely going to want to trade into it to kill it, use removal on it or something. And then you're going to get that demon from your hand, and they're still going to have to deal with that demon. So it gives this tension between, I don't want to take the 8 damage, I don't want to deal with the big demon that potentially does just as much or more damage. I like this. I like the stat line that it has, and I like the effect that it has. Obviously that I can't remember what it was called, whatever that druid card was. It didn't really see play except very shortly for like a Mechthune combo, but I think this will be a good option in the large demon Hunter deck. I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. I'm definitely gonna be running large demon Hunter. Then for Druid, we have a rare spell, Iron Bark, 2 mana, give a minion +1/+3 and taunt. Cost 0 if you have at least 7 mana crystals. So it's kind of like Mark of the Wild, except you move the attack into health, so it kind of makes more sense that way as a card that's giving taunt anyways, to have extra health. But Mark of the Wild doesn't see any play, so you'd think the only reason this would see play was because it costed 0. This kind of extra stat bonus is going to matter a lot less in the late game. So because it's weird giving a minion a small stat bonus for 0 in the late game, I'm thinking that you're running this for the fact that it's a 0 cost spell, and you probably want it in an Auctioneer deck or something like that. So maybe this is an option that you run when you're trying to cycle through your deck with Auctioneer and trying to get towards a combo or something like that. I'm not really sure where else you'd put it. Even then, I'm still not sure I would want to run it. It seems really strange. Like, you would feel fine playing it for 2 mana if you had to, because it's not a terrible effect for that. But initially, with the cards we're seeing, I don't think we would want it off the bat. I think maybe in the future with more synergy, we'll be able to find a way to make this work. But yeah, I think initially, I'm going to give it 2 stars. Then we have a neutral rare card, Scrapyard Colossus, 10 mana, 7/7 elemental with taunt, Death Rattle, summon a 7/7 Fellcracked Colossus with taunt. So it's a 7/7 that when dies, summons a 7/7. Both of them have taunt. Maybe this works in like a ramp druid or something, or some kind of deck that goes into the late game really well. This is a card that really doesn't get punished very hard by removal because of the fact that you get it back immediately, basically, after you've summoned it. There's not normally things like much bigger than this that you're going to be seeing from almost any deck. Only 10 mana is really slow, so it's hard to fit this into decks. If you could make this cheaper in some way, maybe that's actually worth doing. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe you run Imprisoned Satyr in this Ramp Druid and you try and get stuff like this down faster. I'm definitely seeing the potential in a Ramp Druid to have stuff like this. Although the more I think about it, a comparable card, I guess, would be Colossus of the Moon, which is very sticky as well, and is actually larger, and is also just, because it's 10 mana, doesn't see play. So I guess compared with Colossus of the Moon, I'm not really sure this is that much better than that, and we know that that sees only very minor play. It sometimes has been in Quest Warlock, and Quest Warlock has not been good. And it sometimes would be seen in Res Priest, but not very often. I think if Colossus of the Moon isn't going to see play, this probably isn't going to see play either. But I will be interested to see if I can make it work. For that reason, I think I'm going to give it 1 star. Then our next one is a Warlock Legendary. Paladin the Breaker. 6 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, destroy a minion. If drawn this turn, instead destroy all minions except this one. So if you top deck it, you get to clear the entire board. I think destroying 1 minion doesn't feel too bad for a 6 mana 3/3. However, I think getting that full board clear definitely feels a lot better. I think Plot Twist is definitely an easy way to make sure that you draw this and get to play it on the same turn. So like on turn 8 maybe, you're getting like a Twisting Nether effect and getting a 3/3 with it. If we do have Plot Twist Warlock working, that would make a lot of sense. I think without Plot Twist, you're generally not going to be able to rely on being able to draw this and do the effect of the same turn. But yeah, I think in most cases, if you don't run Plot Twist, this is just going to be destroying a singular minion. It's hard to tell if it's really better than just running Twisting Nether or something like that, because you might be dropping a deck slot for that. If you're running this and Twisting Nether, that starts to become a little excessive, I think, because you're going to definitely have other smaller board clears in Warlock anyways. If you're going for these huge over-the-top board clears, you're going to want it to be on big stuff. And if you're dealing with that many big things, you probably got a lot of problems anyways. I think it might be an option. It might be used in some cases. But I definitely think that it's a little too awkward. And I know that Plot Twist Warlocks haven't been incredibly good lately. So if you have to use Plot Twist in conjunction with this, I don't think that that makes it any better, because you're probably putting it in a less efficient Warlock deck that way. So for that reason, I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. I think it might be an option that you consider, but I don't think it's something that you definitely feel incredibly inclined to be going out of your way to craft to put in your deck or anything like that. If you did see it in a list, you definitely feel fine not going out of your way to craft it, and you just run something else instead, I think. Then we have Supreme Abyssal, common card, 8 mana, 12/12. It's a demon and it can't attack heroes. So that's definitely a large minion. This might make the cut in the large demon hunter, but I think there might just be better targets, better options to run. You can't have too many, or else you're gonna struggle to be able to keep up in the early game if all of your stuff costs too much like that. And then the fact that it can't attack heroes means that you're either going to want to use your Consume Magic to silence it so it can attack face, which could be a surprise burst of damage when your opponent isn't expecting it. But otherwise, you're just having this big body that's just there for trading 1 minion at a time away. Outside of Demon Hunter, I don't really know if it's going to fit into anything. I don't see it fitting into anything. Like, when you have a big body like this that can attack heroes, you're going to want to hit other big bodies that are a little smaller. I don't know how many different decks are going to care about something like that. So it definitely seems a little bit too awkward. I'm going to give it 1 star. I don't think it's going to see play. Then we have another Demon Hunter card. It's a rare card, Coil Fang Warlord. 8 mana, 9/5 with Rush. Death Rattle, summon a 5/9 Warlord with Taunt. So, funny thing, this kind of reminds me of the card we just looked at a second ago. It looks a little bit like the Scrapyard Colossus, except it's got Rush on the first part. It moved the stats to be more aggressive on the first part instead, and then more defensive on the second part with the taunt, and it costs 2 less. So this card's definitely a million times better than that card. It's a cool card in a slower Demon Hunter for sure. You're getting to smash into something big, probably, and then you get a taunt left behind, and that seems really, really good. The only problem is that I feel like the slow Demon Hunter deck is gonna be only wanting the big cards to be demons. So for this that's not a demon, I'm really not sure if this is gonna make it. Even though it's so strong on its own, I don't know if you can fit that many more expensive cards in your deck, right? So then you're looking at a deck that's not the large demon deck that still wants to run an 8-drop like this. And I don't know what deck that is. So while this card seems absolutely incredibly powerful, I just don't know if you can fit it into any of the decks that are going to exist for Demon Hunter. But without a doubt, it will have the ability to make it into a deck. Just one that we might see in the future, right? It's like so good. I almost feel like you need to be making a deck for this card to work. But I think for now, I'm just going to give it 2 stars. I think it will definitely find a deck in the future. Just right now, I don't think any of the decks that I'm currently seeing as options for Demon Hunter are going to have space for this. Just because it's a little bit too expensive for the faster decks. And it's not a demon for the big demon decks. But eventually, I think it could be a 4 or 5 star card in a future deck. Then we have a Druid Epic card, Glowfly Swarm. So it's 5 mana, summon a 2/2 Glowfly for each spell in your hand. So this is similar to Whispering Woods, but now it's only for spells, not just for any card. And you're getting larger minions for only 1 more mana. So this definitely seems a lot stronger in a spell-based druid. So we have seen that they are trying to push more spell druid, right? Maybe spell druid is a token deck. Maybe we're running treant cards and stuff like that. We are losing a decent amount of those going into this rotation, like landscaping. But maybe it's still possible. It might be a little bit slow with its big cards being like 5 or more here. I think this might even make the Fungal Fortunes possible if you're running a deck like this, where you're just running a bunch of spells that summon minions in a token variety of deck. And then you'd probably still run stuff like Garden Gnome and whatever, and it would be not absolutely terrible to discard that with your Fungal Fortunes. So yeah, maybe a spell token druid would work. This card is definitely the reason why you do that, because it's just so powerful. If you could get a board of like 7 2/2s for 5 mana, we've had that before with the one that ate all your mana crystals, and that was very strong at the time. Living Mana, that's what it was called. And then you had no mana left over after that. given that this lets you keep your mana, this is definitely a lot better if you can make it work. I'm definitely going to try something like this. I don't know if there's quite enough support yet. I think it's going to be a little bit weaker in the early game trying to lead up to this. In fact, honestly, now that we have like Rising Winds and stuff being a really good option in a deck like this, I'm going to give it 3 stars. I think this deck might work. I'm just a little bit skeptical still. But this definitely might be the new face of Token Druid in the future. Then these last few cards were all basic and initiate set cards for Demon Hunter. Just revealed today. So let's get into those ones. So first one is Inner Demon, 8 mana. Give your hero 8 attack this turn. So that's a big attack buff. So you can do 8 damage to face with this, which might be what you want to be doing. If we're already going to be having stuff like Metamorphosis as our finisher, I think this is not going to be it. This is a little bit too expensive for stuff like that for an aggressive deck. I think this would work great with Blade Dance, so that you deal 8 damage to 3 minions. That would be a sick board clear, in addition to being able to hit your opponent with it, or even a 4th minion if need be. It could be good in combination with Eldrazi Warblades, so that you get a big burst of healing in these slower decks. So both these cases, obviously, this is an 8 mana card. It's got to be a slower type of deck. So a more controlled Demon Hunter that, yeah, you're going to get a big burst of healing, or you're getting a big board clear, or both, potentially. If you've already got the Warblades, you could have a 10 damage to 3 minion board clear, which is totally nuts. Like, and nothing's going to live through that. And then still get 10 health back to your face. So I could definitely see these being things that you're going to want to do in a deck like that. I don't think you'd run more than 1 copy of this, but doing that one time definitely sounds like a good idea. It's just that the 8 mana cost and potentially having to combine it with other cards, or almost certainly having to combine it with other cards, so you're going up to 10 mana for a play like this, is very expensive. So this might just be too slow. It might not be able to be something that you can really do. If you're putting it in stuff like the large demon deck, where you're already running a lot of expensive cards, this might not fit in there because it's too expensive again. But I definitely see the use cases, so I think I'm going to give it 3 stars. Then we have Sightless Watcher, which is a 2 mana 3/2. It's a demon, and battle cry, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose 1 to put on top. So this seems like a really sick card. It's an early game card that lets you pick what's on top of your deck, which is great for setting up Outcasts, given that if you top deck a card that has Outcasts, the Outcast will be active. So you can put an Outcast card on top with this card, and you'll know what's going to happen and be ready to set up a very large swing. Like Eye Laser is a really great idea here, because the next card you draw, you're getting to deal that removal. I think you're going to run this in tons of Demon Hunter decks. I think this is a 5-star card. I think this kind of effect is super powerful in Demon Hunter without a doubt. And we have 2 legendaries to look at. Altruist the Outcast, 3 mana 3/2. After you play the left or rightmost card in your hand, deal 1 damage to all enemies. So this kind of is like if you play Outcast cards. It doesn't have to be Outcast cards, but cards that are technically the Outcast in your hand, then you get this upside of a board clear type effect. And given that some of these Outcast cards, a lot of these Outcast cards are very cheap, and cards like Skull of Gul'dan, when you play it, it will give you cheap cards because of the Outcast effect. I think you won't have a hard time dealing at least 2 damage with this. Even up to 3 damage shouldn't be too difficult if you're playing it later on. I think this will fit very nicely into decks that are running Outcast cards, or just in an aggressive deck, you might just want to be playing this and popping down a lot of cards all at once, going rightmost card, rightmost card, rightmost card, and playing all the cards in your hand and dealing a huge swath of damage. I think it just lines up super well with what Demon Hunter wants to do, and I think you're definitely going to be running this in quite a few decks. Just because it has to be combined with other cards and stuff, and its stat line alone is a little bit weak, I'm going to give it 4 stars. And then our last card is Nethrandamus, 9 mana, 8/8 dragon, and Battlecry summon 2 random 0-cost minions, but it upgrades each time a friendly minion dies. So this is your big endgame swing that you're going to do after you've been playing this sacrifice your token strategy the entire game. This is your big payoff for all of that. Like, obviously you have the other cards that work really well with that strategy, but this is what you're going to do at the very end to try and end out the game. Obviously summoning 2 0-cost minions seems pretty bad with the 8/8, but once you get to I'd say 3 costs, then you're pretty happy. 2 costs are okay. Like 1 cost, you're like, this is a bad Onyxia. But yeah, like once you're at 3 costs, 2-3 costs is fine. And once you go beyond that, like it's gonna be a totally insane play. Like I think you'll be able to expect to get 3, like you got this is like an 8-drop body, you get 2 more 8-drops. The only concern there being is that you might, with these token decks, not want to wait quite this long to get something down. But this is just such a big swing. I think you can't really like ignore this. Also, I imagine it only upgrades if it's in your hand. It won't upgrade in the deck. Otherwise, that would be a little bit too insane. You could probably run it in any deck at that point. I'm going to give this one 4 stars. Alright, so that's it for the video. We will be having the final card reveal stream tomorrow, Wednesday. I believe it's 10 a.m. PST. I'm going to be watching that, and we're going to be looking at all the cards from that, and then afterwards, leading up to the expansion release, we'll be doing a full set review. Hopefully we see some really cool stuff tomorrow, and I'll be excited to talk about all of it in my next video. So if you like this video, please leave a like, comment down below what you think of the new cards that are being revealed, what archetypes you're excited to try out, if you're liking this new Demon Hunter stuff, or the Spell Druid, or who knows what. And please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my content in the future. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.